You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Well, Joni, I am so looking forward to getting to know you. You told me in an email that there's not a moment of your life that is not filled to the brim, and all of it is centered on your relationship with Jesus. And that's why we come here, to share what the Lord has done in our lives and to give him the glory. You've walked with the Lord a long time, and I'm sure he has been faithful in so many ways. So I want to hear all about it. And I'm just going to pass the microphone to you, and you're going to take us away into your story.
Thank you, Pam. I'm so delighted to be here. And I'd like to start by telling you where I came up with the name of my ministry, Morning Glory Ministry. So I was reading in Exodus one day, and I'll just read this passage for you. This is out of Exodus 16. It says, the whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they came out of Egypt. So the children of Israel just came out of captivity. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if we only had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt, there we sat around pots of meat and ate food we wanted. But you've brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, in the evening, you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning, you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us? Moses also said. You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he's heard you grumbling against him. So the children of Israel have been enslaved for 400 years. They've never known a time when they were not enslaved, and still they did not recognize the huge gift of freedom. Their eyes could not see past their hunger, and they'd only been free for about 6 weeks when they started grumbling. So when I read this story, I'm surprised that they're not just in awe of God and his goodness at this point. They've got this freedom, and yet I thought about myself, and I thought I'm just like them. I can always find something to grumble about, because short-sightedness makes us stumble over the long-term benefits, because I'm always looking for short-term satisfaction instead of recognizing sometimes we have short-term inconvenience. So I complain about things when there's every reason to be thankful instead. And in the middle of their whining, God remained true to his character, just like he does today with us. He looked beyond their fault and he saw their need. And he provided yet another reason for them to trust him. And he gives us reasons to love him more and more, as though the fact that he is God were not enough. So the name of the ministry came from verse 7, where he says, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord. And so my prayer is that each action of this ministry will declare the glory of the Lord. And I have experienced his loving kindness over and over. God asked them to decide every day by telling them only to take what they needed for that day. And he does the same thing for us. He's trying to teach us in everything that he gives us to do. And so I want to kind of tell you a couple of stories of how that has played out in some circumstances in my life. So when my son was a little boy, he used to tell me all the time, Mom, I made my mind. He wouldn't say I made my mind up. He would say, I made my mind.
Okay.
And when he told me that, whatever he said, whatever he had decided, it was going to happen. He was probably about 5 when he started saying that. And now he's in his 40s and he still has that same mindset. And what I've found is that in my own life, if I'm not intentional, if I don't make my mind about seeking God, it will not happen at all.
Mm-hmm.
So life kind of happens 2 ways. Sometimes we're responding to what happens around us, and sometimes we're designing what happens around us. So both factors are a reality for all of us. We're either responding or designing all the time. When I made my mind, when I designed my relationship with God, which is another way to say being intentional about my relationship, that's when I seemed to see him working. And I think that's one reason why God told them only to take enough for one day, because he was teaching them to be intentional about trusting him. So I'll tell you a couple of stories that have kind of very much played out because of an intentional decision on my part. So about 2003, it occurred to me that I wanted to make an intentional commitment to pray for my grandchildren. And so I started praying for them. And I prayed that Mackenzie, my first grandchild, would be a child who loves the Lord. And so she's little bitty at the time. A couple of years pass, and Mackenzie comes running to me one day with a picture she has drawn. It's the first picture she's ever given me. You know, it goes on the refrigerator.
Uh-huh.
That picture is in her little handwriting, the words, I love the Lord. And I
Oh.
thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly the words of my prayer. I prayed that she would be a child who loves the Lord. And I thought, if I had not been so intentional about praying that for her, I would have totally missed what she's handing me right
Yeah.
now. So that was one of the first times. My next grandchild is named Rowdy, and my prayer for him was that he would be an obedient child. And I don't know if this was part of my mindset or what, but just the word rowdy does not make you think obedient.
Right. Right.
And that's his name. And that's exactly what he is. He's just an obedient child. He always has been. My next grandchild was named Cullen, and my prayer for him, he was an infant at the time, was that he would be a child who brings people to the Lord. And Cullen is all over the place. He's about as ADD as you can be, ADHD, and
Uh-huh.
some things. And he is delightful, but I promise you, he keeps us on our knees. So in that way, he is bringing people to the Lord.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought
Yeah,
about it like that. I was thinking like he's everywhere telling everybody about Jesus and like preaching to people, but even like sharpening your desire to go to the Lord. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
well, you're right. That's exactly what I had in my mind. And who knows what he will grow up to be. He's still a little boy, but
Mhm.
even in his childhood, he's bringing people to their knees to pray for him and to look out for him and to prepare for him. He's going to be an amazing person. And then my little next grandson was named Preston, and I prayed that he would be a child with the joy of the Lord, and he is very much that so. So in my decision, when I decided to pray and ask God to be an influence in these children's lives, it also crossed my mind that I was kind of concerned that I was going to miss a lot of things from my grandchildren that live in Houston, 4 or 5 hours from me, just because I'm not around them all the time. So I threw in there in my prayers, God, please don't let me miss all the firsts in my grandchildren's lives. So one day I go visit my daughter, and when we come in the front door, she goes, we just filled up the wading pool in the backyard. We're fixing to swim. And we get in the pool with the baby, who at that time was Cullen. And I looked at her and I said, "Is this the first time he's been swimming?" And she said, "Yeah."
Oh.
One of our next visits, she takes us for his first haircut.
Oh.
Then a few years later, he comes bounding in my back door when they come to my house for a visit, and he comes running across the patio and he says, "Grandma, I have a loose tooth. Do you want to pull my tooth?" So I got to pull his first tooth.
That is so fun.
It's so fun. And so then we went and met my daughter and son-in-law and family on a little vacation they were on one day. And when I walked up, the younger grandson was on a bicycle for the first time. I got to watch him ride a bicycle for the first time. So over the period of time, as I started seeing God answering these prayers, which seemed trivial, but they weren't trivial to my grandmother's heart.
Right.
I told my daughter what I'd been praying. And so we're sitting at a ball game one day, and Cullen hits his first home run.
Oh.
And I looked at her and I said, "Crystal, was that his first home run?" And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Yeah, Mom, it was the first one." And I thought, she knows what I'm talking about because she remembers I told her that. So I have this precious relationship with my grandchildren. And then my son married someone who had a teenage son. So I've got this new grandchild, and it's not the same thing learning to love a grandchild when you don't get to meet them and grow up with them when they're toddlers and babies. It's different.
Right.
And so I'm praying and saying, "God, help me figure out how to have a good relationship with this new child in my life." Not only is he new and he's like a preteen when I first start getting to spend a lot of time around him, he's used to being an only child. He's used to doing his video games and doing his own thing. And it's not a big deal to him that I'm in his world. Let's just put it that way. So he's the three kids in that household are just 1 year apart. So there's one seventh grader, one eighth grader, one ninth grader, or somewhere along those ages. And I taught that age group at church about that time. So I would go to the town near us where they lived and pick up all three kids and bring them to youth every night. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. And then my two older grandkids stopped coming to my class because one of them made cheerleader, and cheerleaders practiced on Wednesday night. And then the other one started going to youth in the same town where they live with some of his friends, and that was a good thing for him to do. So I had to decide, am I going to drive over there every week and pick up this kid who doesn't really care if I come, I don't think, and he doesn't have much to say to me, and it was just awkward. We'd get in the car and we've got a 20-minute drive, and he was never rude. He just, if I asked him something, he would interact, but the conversation just didn't flow. Okay, so we're making this ride with my new grandson, and he's new in the school system because he and his mom moved from a different community to come here. So I worked at the post office, and one customer that would come in and visit with me all the time talked about her grandson that she was raising. And he had an unusual name, so his name stuck in my head. Unbeknownst to me, she lived in the town where my grandkids went to school. So as she's telling me these stories about her little grandson, who she just adores, I didn't realize that he went to school with my grandchildren in the next town over. So one day my new grandson starts talking about some kid in school that he has become friends with, and I'm thinking, oh, good, a conversation. And I recognized the name of the child he mentioned.
Yeah.
Whose grandmother has been coming in and chatting with me. And I thought,
yeah.
Yes, I thought, how sweet. God's given me something to talk with my new grandson about. He was amazed that I knew a kid from his school. I was amazed too. So that just felt like a little gem from God. So one day I started telling my new grandson stories about how much fun we had when we'd go visit my daughter when she was in college. And I told him he's a very smart kid. I said, I can't wait till you're in college someday because we're going to have fun coming to visit you too. And he put his video game down and he looked at me as serious as he'd ever been. And he said, you're not going to come see me. Once I graduate from high school, I'll never see you again. And it broke my heart. I thought, does he believe this? And then I started to get offended. And I thought, no, you can't go there. Do not be offended. This is a child, and you're asking God to help you form a relationship with him. So I decided, let it go. Just keep sowing into this relationship and let God work it out. So the next Christmas, my son and daughter-in-law bought him a guitar. And he's brilliant on the guitar. I have a guitar too, and I play a little bit, but I strum, and he put in all the foo-foo, fancy, gorgeous stuff. All I did was keep rhythm, but he did the fancy stuff. And our teens in our class loved it. And they would ask us if we could stay, they'd ask if we could stay extra long singing. He was just star. It was like, oh God, you've opened a door for him to shine in this group of kids. And it was just precious. So our relationship began to grow around our mutual music interests. And I would invite him to play with me on Sunday mornings because I lead worship on Sunday mornings. But once again, it involved a commitment from me, because I had to decide, am I going to drive to the other town every time and pick him up? So I would drive over there and pick him up. So summer rolls around and I'm still working with the teens at church and they want to go to camp. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm 63 at this point. And I'm thinking, go to camp with a bunch of teenagers, and everything inside me is screaming, you are too old for this. It's one thing to walk and, say I can walk 2 or 3 miles at a time. It's another thing to take a bunch of teenagers for 5 days in the Texas summer heat.
And surely they would not expect that of you, right? That would be a real easy one to say, I will pass, and everyone would respect you for that decision.
Yes, it would have been easy to say no, but I decided I was going to go anyway. And part of my decision came from the fact that my other grandson, who was, going to church with his friends in the town where they lived, he invited a bunch of his friends to come with us to camp. And I thought, okay, not only will I get to spend time with my new grandson, I'll get to meet my other grandson's friends who are going to go along, and I'll get to see just who it is he hangs out with on a daily basis. So I had, like I say, I played the guitar a little bit, and I had 2 guitars. I didn't want to take my good one to camp with us. I thought, anything can happen at camp. So I had loaned out my extra guitar to another student, and I asked her if she'd bring it with us. She wasn't playing it anyway, so I could take it to camp. And she said, sure. Well, number one, all the girls that were going to go with us backed out except this one girl. And I couldn't believe she was still going to go with a carload of boys, but she was. To add to the confusion about it, she was in a walking cast. She had hurt her foot. So I'm thinking, you got a lot of courage, girl, to go being the only teenage girl in your walking boot. But she did. So when we all loaded up at the church to leave, the first thing she said when she got out of the car with her luggage was, oh no, I forgot the guitar. And I thought, it's okay. We didn't have time to go get it. We'll make do. Because she forgot her guitar, it meant me and the new grandson. Well, it meant the new grandson was only going to have his guitar there. I would not be able to help him lead when we did our little group devotionals. So as we settled into the girls' dorm, because obviously there's girls in one dorm and boys in the other, I was a little...
I'm really glad you're telling me there was a dorm and it wasn't tent camping, because this is like upgraded it just a little bit. At least you're not on the ground.
That's exactly right. So I'm in the girls' dorm with just the one girl. And I thought, I hope she has fun with just she and I, because that's a big age difference. Well, some of the other girls in the dorm scooped her up and made her their own, and they were just absolutely precious. And then the camp had to assign someone to be a sponsor for all my boys in the boys' dorm because, I couldn't be in there to be with them. So as the days unfolded, I did not require all the kids to do all the same things. Some of them would go do archery, some of them would go do basketball, some of them would go do crafts. Whatever they wanted to do, they could go do their own thing for most of the day, except they all had to be at worship time, and they all had to gather together for time to stand in line together for meals, because each time we had a meal, it was about a 20-minute wait in the line. And I thought, that can be our bonding time. We'll stand and visit in the meal lines. My new grandson stayed in the dorm. He didn't want to go do any of those sporting events. He just wanted to sit with his guitar. So throughout the week, he's creating this persona for himself by all the kids in his dorm who are hearing him play his guitar with such excellence. And the guy that was the leader in that, or kind of overseeing them in that dorm, would come out and tell me how he impressed them with his playing. So it was so much fun. So when it was time for mealtime, I would have to send one of the boys to go get him out of the dorm every time. Not one time did any of those boys grumble. They would stop what they were doing and run back over to the dorm, which was not all that close, and bring him back. And I was just counting my blessings, thinking, how in the world did you get these sweet-spirited kids who don't fuss at him for staying in the dorm and don't fuss at you for insisting you go get him? It was just precious. So one of the kids that went with us was over 6 feet tall, and he made a new girlfriend every single time we waited in the lunch line. So we would laugh and make friends with his new lunch line girlfriend. One of the kids had the deep voice, and every time he said something, everyone around us would stop and listen to what he had to say. He was like an orator. He was a young man who knew lots of scripture, and he was very grounded. So as the week goes on, I'm just soaking this all in as a grandmother, thinking, I'm so glad I decided to come. I'm so glad I decided to come. The scripture for the week was from Psalms, and it said this: the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart greatly rejoices, and with my song I will praise him. So after the worship time, the first time, our group huddled in a gazebo for our own little group devotionals. My new grandson brings out his guitar, and he starts trying to lead by himself for the first time. That is not easy. I don't know if you've ever tried to accompany a group, but it is not easy.
I actually can't even sing with the group. Not my thing.
Well, it was a big ball of wax, and I knew that, but there was nothing I could do other than volunteer to take his guitar and lead with it, which he did not want me to do. So he tried, and the kids were very kind to him, but it was kind of a bomb, and he felt very conspicuous. And after that first time, he was embarrassed, and he wouldn't bring his guitar back to devotionals. So about the third evening, while we're there, after the camp events of the day, there was this big thing out on the field where they had lots of lights and all these colored powder bombs that the kids were throwing back and forth, I don't remember how they did, but there was lots of color, lots of powder, and lots of lights.
Yeah, they just did that at my daughter's youth group last week, and they called it Color Wars. So it's chalk.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It was fun. So all the kids are out there playing, except my new grandson, who is just watching them. And he walks over and he puts his arm around my shoulder, and he says, "Grandma, why is it so hard?" And I looked at him and I said, What? What is so hard? He said, Playing for them to sing. I know how to play, but it's really hard to lead by myself. And I said, Oh, sweetheart, everything you ever do that's important will be hard. Everything you ever do that's important will be hard. Just ask God to help you, and He will. And we talked a little, but mostly we just stood there with his arm around my shoulder, watching those bursts of color and listening to the kids laugh. And in that night air, we bonded. I had convinced myself to go to camp in part because I prayed it would offer me that opportunity to know this new grandchild. And in that summer night air, we bonded. The next time we had a devotional, he showed up with his guitar. And I watched him face a difficult part of growing up with courage. And I thought, you know, as Bible teachers and grandparents and moms, we want our kids to learn lessons. We want them to learn to be brave. We want them to learn to ask God for help. We want them to be open to new things God might direct them toward. We want them to keep on when they're tired or discouraged, but sometimes we as adults need the same refreshers in our life. And as I thought about going to camp with those kids, I thought, God did all these things for me there, because now when all the boys with my older grandson run off the football field, they're just as likely to come hug me as they are their grandmother, because I bonded with them at camp too. I got to watch new grandson make decisions, and I just was reminded that kids need to see us doing the very things that we ask them to do. They need to see us decide. They need to see us be intentional about our daily decisions to walk with the Lord. By the end of the week, there was a moment when the camp band invited different groups of kids to get up on stage and sing with them. And all my group of kids bounded up there and, of course, had a great time and enjoyed it. We laughed and we played and we had a great time. But I will never forget this moment, because God just opened so many precious things for me as a grandmother, and reminded me we don't ever stop learning, and we don't age out of our faith. We just keep aging into it and learning new lessons. And most of them start with a simple decision that we make to decide to let God do something in us and through us. It was a precious moment to get to watch that grandson decide to bring his guitar back out.
Well, I think that this would be termed "you were fire." I think that's what they say. That was fire.
Yes, it was
Because
fire.
you really brought it today for us, and this really ministers to my heart to remember that each day there's a decision to make. Each day we can choose. And I like how you started at the beginning to say, we can choose to respond, or we can choose to be part of the design into what's happening. And I can see that you very intentionally stepped into this role. And wow. Yeah, you said that everything that's important to do will be hard. And that speaks to probably all of us, no matter what our situation, no matter our stage of life. If we've got toddlers at home, junior hires, high schoolers, neighbors that are hard to love, ministry, church hurt, like all the different things, there's some really important things that God has called us to do. And sometimes it'll be a challenge, but I think it'll be worth it, right?
Yes, and the more times we walk through those hard moments and watch God answer our prayers, the more we trust Him.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Before we even started to record, the word that kept going through my mind was faithful, faithful. Somehow we're going to talk about God's faithfulness today. And
Absolutely.
I think that's it. I think he is faithful. And we learn more about him and understand his faithfulness more, recognize it more the
Mm.
longer we walk with him.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got to fill the listeners in to know where I found you, where we got connected. And we are both contributing authors in the book by Michelle Rayburn. It actually says Michelle Rayburn and Friends. So we're friends. And it is called Life in the Estrogen Free Zone. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes, and you can find that there. There's just a lot of really encouraging, heartfelt, and humor filled stories in that book about raising sons. So I do think that will be an encouragement to you if you are a boy mom. But Joni, you've been a contributor in another book. I'll put that one in the show notes too. Do you want to tell me anything about that?
Yes, this book was a collaborative effort also, and it was put together by Kathy Carlton Willis. It is called Sage, Salt, and Sunshine, and it's stories of women inspiring women with insight, truth, light, and joy. And I have two stories in there. And every one of these stories is about women who have changed our lives by their mere presence. And some of the people who tell stories in this book explain that the women that influenced them didn't even know that they were important to them at the time it was happening.
Yeah. The thing I love about books like this is that they could be read in little bits at a time. I have trouble sometimes getting through a full novel, but these are bite-sized. You can pick them up and just read a story at a time. So I love that. But you also have a website. I want to make sure everybody knows where to find you online and social media, all the places. Where will those places be?
Well, I am on my website is Morning Glory Ministry. That's www.morninggloryministry.com. But on the morning and glory, they share a G. So there's only one G in the middle there.
Okay.
And then I have a Facebook page that's for Morning Glory Ministry. And I have a Instagram account that's also Morning Glory Ministry.
Okay. Well, I think that'd be great to follow you over there. You are a fun lady to get to know. And so I hope we connect over on all the places. And I wonder if you could just close us out in a word of prayer today.
I would be glad to. Dear Father, thank you so much for an opportunity to tell the stories of the ways you've been faithful to us. Lord, you don't see anything as small when we bring it to you and lay it before you. And I thank you for the ability to see you blessing me and blessing people around me. Thank you for impacting my life from the time I was a child. And I thank you for the fact that you impact all of our lives every single day. Lord, for the mother who is at her wit's end today, give her comfort, give her peace. For the mother who doesn't know what to do with her teenager, help her to remember to come to you. Lord, the best lesson you ever taught me was the day you reminded me that you loved my children more than I loved them. Help us as parents and grandparents to remember that and to remember to bring our children to you to meet their needs. In your precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Now, ladies, if you could use some encouragement and maybe a place to brainstorm about how to live more intentionally with your parenting or grandparenting, please join me over on the Tending Fields Moms group on Facebook, where we chat about the real practical things of life. And on Tuesday, we will be kind of doing a recap of this episode, and you're going to want to be there as we just throw out ideas of ways to live intentionally with the children, the people that God has brought in your life. So, looking forward to seeing you there. Have a great week. Bye-bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true.